Stepha Henry was a 22-year-old woman who lived in New York City. In 2006, she graduated from John Jay College of Criminal Justice and started working in the recruiting department of their office. She'd also been preparing for the law school admissions examination while working there. In May of 2007, Stepha went to Miami, Florida for vacation with her younger sister Shola to celebrate Shola's birthday. The two sisters went to a reggae concert. On the 29th of May, Stepha told her aunt that she had made plans with Kendrick Lincoln Williams to go to Club Peppers, a nightclub in Fort Lauderdale that evening. Kendra and Stepha had met at a party in Miramar the previous night at a home of a mutual friend. That evening, Stepha left her aunt's house, where she had been staying, in a 1995 Acura Integra with Kendrick Lincoln Williams. They were the only people in the car. This would be the last time Stepha was seen alive. The next day, when Stepha did not arrive back home, she was reported missing. Investigators questioned Kendrick, and he told them that he had left the club early and that Stepha had decided to stay. Surveillance footage from the club showed Stepha at the club, and it did not seem that there was any type of confrontation between the two in the footage. Stepha's phone last pinged at around 4:13 in the morning, somewhere around Club Peppers on the night she disappeared. She had checked her voicemail at that time. The phone has been turned off ever since. Despite a number of searches, no trace of Stepha was ever found. A few months later, in September of 2007, investigators found and impounded the red Acura that Kendrick drove the day Stepha went missing. It was found Kendrick had sold the car after Stepha's disappearance. A forensic analysis of the vehicle revealed substantial evidence, including blood, which was found on the front passenger seat and the seatbelt. There was also a bleach stain found on the right front floorboard and under the front passenger seat. Detectives were able to conclusively link the blood found in the car to Stepha. Based on the bloodstain patterns, authorities determined Stepha was either stabbed or beaten in the head, neck, or upper back. In January of 2008, police tracked down Kendrick, living in a car at the Canarsie Pier in Brooklyn. Kendrick was living a transient lifestyle, and one of his ex-girlfriends had filed charges against him for stalking and breaking into her home. He was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in Stepha's death. He is still awaiting trial, and there's been no news about the trial. Stepha's body has never been found. Audrey May Herron was a 31-year-old mother of 3 who lived with her husband in Catskill, New York. She was working as a nurse at the Columbia Green Long-Term Healthcare Facility. On August 29, 2002, Audrey finished her shift at around 11 p.m. and walked out to her 1994 Jeep Grand Cherokee. She told her coworkers that she would see them at work later in the week as she walked out of the facility. She was driving westbound on State Route 23. It was about a 12 to 15 minutes drive from the facility back to her home, but she never arrived at her home. The next morning, her husband reported her missing to police. An extensive search was carried out. Police questioned her coworkers and found that one of the coworkers was right behind Audrey's car when she left the parking lot in her Jeep. The coworker was behind her car for 5 minutes before she took a different turn. This was the last confirmed whereabouts of Audrey. The night before Audrey went missing, it had rained, and the road leading to her home was poorly lit and heavily wooded. Police wondered if she took a different route to avoid it. They searched a 12-mile radius between Audrey's home and her workplace, but nothing turned up. Investigators said her husband, Jeff, had been somewhat uncooperative. However, they have refused to elaborate. He did, however, allow them to search the residence. The police brought cadaver dogs and dug up a few places on the property, but nothing would turn up. Jeff had said that he took a polygraph test and passed, but when asked, the police refused to comment on the matter. Multiple searches for Audrey would be carried out by family, friends, volunteers, and the police. It's worth noting that Jeff had never helped in any of these searches. The police used cadaver dogs, helicopters, and ATVs in the searches for Audrey, but no sign of her or her vehicle has ever turned up. On the day she went missing, Audrey had received a pay raise and was happy. The family does not believe she would have left her children behind. Authorities believe foul play is involved in her disappearance. There have been no suspects, and her case is being investigated as a homicide. Kristen Deborah Modafferi was an 18-year-old girl who had just finished her freshman year at North Carolina State University in 1997. She was studying industrial design. On June 1, 1997, she went to San Francisco to spend her summer studying a photography course at the University of California in Berkeley. After reaching San Francisco, she moved into a house at 274 Jane Avenue in Oakland, California, with 4 other male roommates. She found work from Monday through Friday at Spinelli's coffee shop in the Crocker Galleria Mall, and on weekends she worked at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Her photography classes were to begin June 24, 1997. On June 23rd, just one day before her classes were set to begin, Kristen finished her shift at 3 p.m. and asked a coworker for directions to Baker Beach, which was located next to Land's End Beach. A coworker then saw Kristen at 3:45 p.m. with an unidentified blonde woman on the second floor of the Galleria. The coworker later stated that it was odd that Kristen was still there, as she usually left the mall immediately after finishing her shift. This would be the last time Kristen was seen alive. That night, she did not arrive back at her house on Jane Avenue. Her roommates thought she might have stayed with a friend and did not report her missing. The next day, Kristen failed to attend her photography classes. A few days later, Kristen's father left a voicemail to call him back. One of the roommates called him back and told him that no one had seen her in 3 days. Her parents then flew to San Francisco and reported their daughter missing on June 27th. However, the police did not start their own investigation until 3 days later. Authorities used cadaver dogs and traced her scent from the Galleria to a nearby bus stop. Her scent was then traced to the Muni bus stop for the number 38 bus, all the way to the end of the bus route at Sutro Heights Park. But the trail was lost at the water's edge at nearby Land's End Beach. When her room was searched, in the trash can they found a personal ad in the Bay Guardian newspaper that had been circled. The ad read, "Friends, female seeking friends to share activities, who enjoy music, photography, working out, walks, coffee, or simply the beach, exploring the Bay Area. Interested? Call me." Police tried to locate the person who placed the ad, but were unsuccessful. It is unknown if Kristen placed the ad or if she responded to it. On July 10, 1997, a phone call was made to KGO-TV, an ABC affiliate, by a man named John Onuma. He claimed that 2 women had kidnapped and murdered Kristen and dumped her body under a wooden bridge in the Point Reyes area of Marin County. The police tracked down the 2 women accused and found out that John had falsely implicated them because he wanted to get back at the women for firing his girlfriend, Jill Lampo, from the place where they worked. Police confronted John, and he admitted to making the fake call and that he had learned about the case from television. Upon further investigation, police found out that John had a history of abusing and torturing women. They also found out that John met women mostly through personal ads. His girlfriend Jill reportedly helped to lure the victims to John, who subsequently abused them. Police also questioned one of the victims, who told them that John had once threatened her, saying, quote, "The same thing that happened to Kristen Modafferi could happen to you." Police searched his girlfriend's house as well and found her diary, which had missing pages from the time period when Kristen went missing. When asked, Jill said that John had torn out the pages as they contained information that may come back to hurt him. Despite this, police had no evidence to convict him, and it is unclear if John and Jill are actually connected to Kristen's disappearance. John moved to Hawaii in 1999. Suspected serial killer Robert Durst has been considered a suspect in Kristen's disappearance. He is also suspected of killing 3 people in different states. He's suspected in the disappearance of his first wife, Kathleen Durst, the murder of his longtime friend Susan Berman, and the murder of his neighbor, Morris Black. Although he is a prime suspect in Kathleen and Susan's murder, he has not yet been charged. Plans for his trial have been postponed due to the coronavirus. He was charged with Morris's murder back in 2003, but claimed he killed him in self-defense and was acquitted. Robert Durst owned a house in San Francisco at the time Kristen vanished. However, there's no evidence to connect him to Kristen's disappearance. In 2015, cadaver dogs were brought in to search the house where Kristen was staying. The dogs indicated the presence of human remains in the basement. In 2017, authorities scanned the area with proprietary devices that indicated a crime scene had been present in the basement. Presence of human blood were also found at the residence. A DNA test conducted seemed to match that of Kristen's parents. No information regarding recent blood testing conducted at the residence has been disclosed by police. Kristen's case remains open and unsolved. Matthew Weaver was a 21-year-old man who lived in Simi Valley, California. In 2018, he moved out of his stepmother's house in Simi Valley into his own apartment in Granada Hills. He moved into a new apartment to be closer to his job, where he worked as a lineman for a telephone pole construction company. His father also worked at the same company. He had recently broken up with his girlfriend. His family said he was starting to move on and had already made some new friends. On August 9th, Matthew picked up his check from the company and told his father that he was going to hang out with a new female friend. Matthew then picked up the friend, Melissa Sanchez, from her house, and they both partied late into the night. Matthew dropped Melissa off at her home around 4:30 a.m. that morning. 10 minutes later, his phone records placed Matthew on Mulholland Highway, heading towards Malibu Canyon, near Rose's Overlook. Between 5:45 and 6:24 a.m., he drove around Saddle Peak Road and Shuren Road. At around 6:30 a.m., he stopped at the parking lot at Stunt Road and Saddle Peak Road in Topanga Canyon and posted a Snapchat video of the view. Near the parking lot, there was a metal gate which blocked the Topanga Tower motorway, a dirt road which was usually closed to the general public. At 7:13 a.m., a CCTV camera captured his car driving on the Topanga Tower motorway towards Rose's Overlook. At around 7:30 a.m., it is believed that Matthew reached the end of the trail in the area of Rose's Overlook. Then, 3 hours later, he called Melissa, but as she was at work, she didn't answer the phone. She did, however, text him back to say that she was at work and asked, quote, "What's up?" Matthew replied in jumbled words, saying, quote, like, "Some crazy is going on, shit going on," and, quote, "I just to talk while I have the chance." This would be the last time anyone heard from Matthew. His phone either ran out of battery or he turned it off after this conversation. Melissa replied an hour later, asking if he was okay, but Matthew never responded. Later that night, at around 12 a.m., an individual called 911 after hearing a male and female cry for help coming out of the area of Rose's Overlook. Police arrived at the scene and searched the road, where they found Matthew's BMW in the area of Rose's Overlook above the Backbone Trail and the Hondo Canyon area. An immediate search of the area was launched. The next few months, police searched the area thoroughly, using cadaver dogs, helicopters, and volunteers, but nothing would turn up. In January of 2019, Matthew's car keys would be found by hikers on a hiking trail, just 25 feet from where the vehicle had been found. That same month, Matthew's family took some aerial photos and videos, with the help of a drone, of the area where Matthew disappeared. They released these photos and asked the public for any help in the search. Soon, the family found shreds of a torn white t-shirt, which they believe belonged to Matthew. The cap that Matthew had been wearing the day he went missing would also be found by an individual. There have been no further updates in the case, and it remains unsolved.